If you've ever saved recipes everywhere, screenshots, saved reels, Apple Notes, bookmarks, open web tabs, but still ended up staring into the fridge with no plan and the sudden urge to snack on whatever you can find, then this video is for you. Today, I'm showing you exactly how I use a Notion template to organize all my recipes, plan my meals for the week, and get my shopping list ready. I've also linked the free template in the description if you don't feel like building it from scratch. You can start by creating a new page and naming it something like Meal Planner and Recipes. From here, you can customize the layout and decide which font to use, enable full width and small text if you want to, and go ahead and add any images you want for your icon or cover. Under a heading or recipes, you can insert an inline database and name it recipes. You can also go ahead and rename the default table view to something like admin, because this is the view where you will manage all of the details for your recipes. Now we can go ahead and start adding some extra properties. Think about what you actually want to know about a recipe at a glance. Add prep time, cook time, and rest time, which are all going to be number properties. Then go ahead and add a formula property called total time. Copy the total time formula from the description below. This formula will add together the prep, cook, and rest time. If the total time is under an hour, it will show the time in minutes. If it's exactly an hour, it will display 1 hour instead of 60 minutes. And if it's longer than 1 hour, it splits the time into hours and minutes. You can pin these time properties to the top of the recipe layout so they're always visible within your recipe page. Click Customize Layout and then go ahead and pin the time properties. Make sure to apply to all pages. Next, you can go ahead and add some planning related properties. Serving size, which can be a select property. Meal type, which can either be a select or multi-select property. Then there's a checkbox property called Shortlisted, which is really important when planning meals for the week. You can also go ahead and add another checkbox property called Meal Plan. The next properties are totally based on your personal preference. Cuisine is a multi-select property, which is useful when you're craving something specific. Dietary, also a multi-select property, is helpful if you ever need to cater for any allergies or restrictions. Kitchen tool is great if you rotate between things like using an air fryer, oven, or slow cooker. You can also decide to track the type of protein that a recipe calls for. I've also added a tag property, which is a multi-select property, and you can use it to add any other tags to your recipe. A rating property is useful if you like to score your recipes. Then a photo property for visual reference and great for your gallery image. And a recipe type, so you know whether it came from a website, a cookbook, or if it was manually added. One optional property I also like to add is source or author. This is just for crediting where a recipe came from, whether it's your own recipe, a family recipe, or a specific recipe creator. A date added property is optional, but it's nice if you want to see when you added the recipe to your recipe collection. Back in the table view, you can go ahead and reorder or resize the different property columns. This is the order that I have personally used, as I find it easiest when filling in recipe details. But you can go ahead and organize it in whatever way makes sense for you. You can also edit the date format to display the date the way that you like to see it. Now let's create a few templates to make adding recipes even faster. I have a template called Online Recipe, where I've added a web bookmark for the recipe link and a notes section for any changes that need to be made. I also have a template for recipes from cookbooks with sections for photos of the ingredients and instructions. You can create a template called Personal for any recipes that you have written yourself, or maybe recipes you've collected from family members or friends. I also have a recipe from Reels template. This one's perfect for any social media recipes, where you can paste the caption or screenshots and jot down any missing information that you need to cook this recipe. Within all of my templates, I've also added a cooking recipe converter. I'll include the link for this recipe converter in the description below, so you could go ahead and copy and paste it into your own Notion template. Next, let's create a few views to make browsing our recipes much easier. Start by clicking the plus icon next to your table view. You can switch the layout to the gallery view and rename it Breakfast. Go ahead and enable the page icon if you want and wrap all content. It's also up to you whether you use a small, medium or large card preview. Go ahead and select the compact layout so your properties appear neatly on their own line. Then go ahead and choose which properties to make visible. I like to show the tag, meal and cuisine type for each recipe. This way I can quickly see key information without opening the recipe. Now go ahead and filter this view to only show the breakfast recipes. You can also sort the recipes alphabetically by name, so it's easier to find what you're looking for. Now we can go ahead and make the views for our lunch, dinner, and snack recipes. The quickest way to do this is to right-click on the breakfast view and click Duplicate. Then go ahead and rename it to lunch and update the filter to meal is lunch. You'll go ahead and repeat these same steps for your dinner, snacks, or dessert recipes. I also like to have a view for any new recipes to highlight recipes that I haven't tried yet. Duplicate any of the gallery views, then make sure to remove the meal filter and rather add a tag filter where the tag is new. Now you can see all newly added recipes and remove the new tag once you've tried them. Another way that you can filter for new recipes is by adding a filter by date property. For example, you can filter for recipes which were added this week, this month, or even this year. If you do want to keep track of recipes by specific recipe creators, you can have a board view called Source or Creator. This is really useful if you tend to cook from the same website or creator of a recipe and you want to quickly see everything you've saved from them in one place. You can decide whether you want to have the shortlisted checkbox property visible, and go ahead and subgroup the view by meal if you prefer. Finally, you can add a gallery view called Method, that shows all recipes grouped by kitchen tool, and then sort by meal and name. Now, the order of your meal property select option really matters here, so make sure you've ordered them in the correct order, from breakfast to dinner. Create 2 columns above your recipe section. On the left, I have a call-out block with the heading on the menu. Then on the right side, I have a heading called Recipes to Choose From. Under this heading, we want to add a linked view to our recipe database. Create a new view called Shortlisted Recipes. Choose the list layout and sort by the name property. Also make sure that the meal plan checkbox property is visible. Now we want to add a filter When you see a recipe that you might want to cook soon, you can go ahead and tick the shortlisted checkbox property. Create a new inline database called Meal Planner. You can rename the default table view to the plan. I've also renamed the name property to day. Then you can add a date property. Now we need to create some relation properties for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Make sure you enable the two-way relation, so you won't just see the linked recipe inside your meal planner, but you'll also see the relation property inside your recipe database. You can also set a page limit. For example, if you know you'll only ever add 1 recipe per meal, you can limit it to 1 page. Finally, you can add a status property with options like scheduled, eaten, or missed, which helps you see how realistic your weekly plan actually is. To save time, you can create a template for each day of the week. That way you can have a Monday menu, Tuesday menu, and so on, which means you won't have to type the day every time. You can pin the meal relation properties at the top, so it's super easy to add your recipes. You can also decide whether you want your menus sorted ascending or descending based on their date. To view only menus within the current week, you can create a new calendar view called This Week. Now you can see how the weekday menus appear in the calendar view. So to make it prettier and actually see what meals are planned, you can switch to a gallery layout. If you're not using the calendar view, but you still want to see which menus fall within the current week, you have 2 easy options. You can simply apply a filter where the date is this week, or if you prefer something a bit more visual, you can create a simple formula that ticks a checkbox when the date falls within the current week, and then filter by that checkbox instead. But if you want to add some extra formatting, like adding a certain color to the text, you can go ahead and add a formula and call it menu label. Each meal will get its own heading. You can go ahead and style it however you'd like. Then start a bulleted list and choose whichever icon you want to use. This part of the formula shows the recipes, or a dash if nothing has been planned. Use \n to add spacing before the next meal so the menu doesn't feel cramped. The same logic repeats for the lunch, dinner, and snacks, where the only thing that changes is your emoji, the color for the text, and the property name. If you like to plan more than 1 week at a time, you can group the plan table by date. You can also go ahead and create some additional meal plan views if you want to make the navigation even easier within your meal planner database. For example, you might want to have a calendar view that gives you a monthly overview of your planned meals. Another useful view may be the meals that you've eaten, so you can go ahead and duplicate the plan table, then make sure you have the filter by status eaten. This is great for tracking what you've actually cooked and spotting patterns over time. You can also go ahead and filter your main plan table for status is scheduled. This means that any meals that you've eaten will disappear from the plan view and will only show up in the eaten view. Some people may like to make a missed meals table, so they can track which days they didn't follow their plan and see where adjustments might be needed. Add an inline database called groceries or shopping list. And you're going to have 3 properties. Amount is a text property. Category is a select property where you can keep track of the different food aisles. Then a purchase checkbox property. Go ahead and filter the view so that any item marked as purchased will disappear. You can also create a history view or maybe an archived view that shows all of your purchased items. Then, if you ever need something again, within the history view, you can just uncheck the purchase checkbox property and the item will appear back on your current shopping list. You may want to add it to your recipe templates, so you can always reference what you already have on your shopping list and add to it as needed. Go ahead and edit your template, then add a linked view of the shopping list database. It's very simple, but it really ties the whole meal planning workflow together. As you think about the recipes you want to try this week, you'll go ahead and tick the shortlisted checkbox property so it appears in your recipes to choose from section. Then, once you actually add a recipe to a specific day's menu, you tick the meal plan checkbox. That removes it from the shortlist view, so you can clearly see which recipes are still available to choose from. And remember, these checkboxes don't reset automatically. When you want to plan the recipe again in the future, you'll just manually have to untick them. For example, if you want to make a recipe again next week, you can just untick meal plan so it reappears in the shortlisted view. Otherwise, you can go ahead and uncheck both the meal plan and shortlisted checkboxes to reset it completely. It's very easy to see which recipes have these checkbox properties ticked by looking at the admin table view. From this view, you can quickly select or deselect recipes. And remember, this is just how I use this template. You can go ahead and customize any part of it to suit the way you cook, plan, and eat. Add other properties, remove certain views, or simplify it as much as you want to. The images, icons, and banners that I've used in this template come from my watercolor Notion customization bundle. If aesthetics matter to you too, feel free to check out my Etsy store. I'll leave it linked below. You can also add sections to the page layout if you want to simplify the recipe page. You can group certain properties together so they show up as sections. Which means you can collapse or expand them depending on what you need to see. If you don't want to build this from scratch, remember that you can use the template that I've linked in the description below. Once you open the link, click Duplicate and choose your own Notion workspace. From there, you can start adding your own recipes, tweak any of the views, or simplify anything you don't need, and enjoy your next meal. Okay, bye!